The first question I usually get when I travel is, what the heck is going on the planet right now? And the second one is, what about the suffering children? Okay. So what we're really talking about is we're talking about karma and reincarnation. And it won't work without more than one lifetime. If you try to make it work in one lifetime, it won't ever. So you'll just be frustrated and annoyed until you change your mind on that one. Because it's not possible for us to learn everything in the span of birth to death. It also means, reincarnation also means is, there's no such thing as an innocent child. Now, don't misunderstand me. That doesn't mean that every mistreated child, which might be some of you in this room, and I don't want to be callous about that at all. It doesn't mean that you're guilty. It just means that there's a purpose, that there's a divine necessity for this to happen in order to take you. I mean, my saying, I'm not sure if I said it last night, if Divine Mother, and I think of God as Divine Mother, I'm very inspired by the wisdom of the Father, and it's a fundamental part of my life, but I like comfort. So I like the Divine Mother. And wherever I am, whatever's going on in my life, if Divine Mother is in charge, just like children, you know, isn't that what the mother does for the children? It's all right, honey, I'll hold your hand. You just hold on to my hand, and we'll go through it. Don't be afraid, just hold my hand. The idea that Divine Mother is walking with us and guiding us all the time is true. And whatever is happening to us, if there was an easier way, that's the way she would take us. But a good mother helps the child to grow strong. A good father helps the child to grow strong. And you think you're taking care of your children by protecting them from all challenge, and you raise cripples. You have to have the space, the courage, and the true love to let them face what they have to face. Karma is an unlearned lesson. It's just something that we don't yet know about what really causes suffering and what really causes happiness. That's why suffering ends up being a good friend, because you have committed yourself to some thought or feeling or need or whatever it might be, course of action, attitude, personality trait, desire, that you believe will ease your suffering and bring you happiness. And if it's mistaken, if you're misrepresenting, if you yourself don't understand, you're holding on to something that's never going to make you happy because of some deeply held belief here. I'm not lovable. I should be famous. Nobody appreciates me. Whatever it might be. And we need to think sometimes, what is the core issue here? Not what is it, not how is it manifesting, but what is the core issue? The whole point of everything that happens to us is it's happening to us because there's something we have an opportunity to learn from. And when you overcome karma, you've learned the lesson, so it just doesn't have to happen again. And if you see repeating issues, so the question always is not what is happening to me, because circumstances just trigger our inner consciousness. And our inner consciousness is the point. So you say, what is it that I'm supposed to be learning? And in fact, this for me has been a generic prayer, both for myself and for other people. And I addressing God as Divine Mother because the mother is closer than the father and she'll listen. And I say, Divine Mother, whatever you're trying to teach me, help me to learn it. Or if I see somebody else whose life makes my life painful, Divine Mother, whatever you're trying to teach them, help them to learn it. And then sometimes I add, and soon, please. When my parents passed away within 2 years of each other, 20 years ago, in their early 80s, so they had a good life, 56 years of marriage. They were very happy together. My mother got Parkinson's, and she had it for the last 15 years of her life. So she really struggled a lot. My father, it was, of course, it was very hard on him. The last few years of his life, the last couple of years of my mother's life, he took a mental holiday. But the part of it that I want to share with you is I'm a very efficient, I can solve your problems kind of person. And I just tried to take over their lives. To the point of organizing their refrigerator. It's a little, it's a little far. you can imagine that they didn't like it. I was being so helpful, But then the first thing I realized was I was doing that for my convenience, because it was more convenient for me if they behaved in the way I wanted them to behave. And I mean, I cared about them, I was trying to help them, but I could help them better if they just did it my way. So I was trying to do that. And when I began to see that this didn't work, I thought, what is really going on here? And this was what I came to, which was very interesting. At that point in my own life did not frighten me, meaning I felt comfortable with anything that came to me was meant for my well-being, and that God would give me the strength to deal with it. I'll quote Mother Teresa of Calcutta, God never gives you more than you can handle. And Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, sometimes I wish God didn't have such a high opinion of me. But I was not afraid of my own karma. It come what may, if it comes, then there'll be grace with it and it'll be fine. But I realized I was afraid of my parents. I was afraid for my parents that they couldn't handle their own karma. Can you see that? And then it crossed my mind, they were in their 80s, they had lived their life their way their whole time, and they had made one decision after another which had built the pattern in the chakras. In other words, everything was happening in complete harmony with their energy. It wasn't my life, it was their life, and their life made sense to them. It was the natural next step for them. Exactly. And then I realized how disrespectful I was being. And that was what they were really picking up. They were picking up that you people, you're incompetent. I know everything. I'll come in here and run it. I know how your refrigerator should be organized. And they felt utterly demeaned. Instead of feeling helped by it, they felt utterly demeaned. And then I realized how much of my I'll help you solve it issue was actually that I was afraid of their karma. And if I wasn't afraid of my own, why would I be afraid of theirs? I mean, what about the suffering children? If a soul in a circumstance, why would it not be the right thing for it to happen for them? Why would it not be a necessary step? And why would I be afraid of God's will? Why would I be afraid of... And then you put it, here's another interesting way to put it. If you try to stop someone from having to go through what they have to go through, you are preventing them from growing. And so you condemn them to whatever level of ignorance they're in. Is that helpful? Think about it. So my parents had to face this, and I realized, something happens. Something happens. And I'll just have to deal with it, and we'll be fine. But I can't spend my whole life. But that's when I came to, then I said, Divine Mother, this is when the prayer came to me, Divine Mother, whatever you're trying to teach them, give them, and I gave Divine Mother a few more suggestions. Give them the receptivity, the devotion, and the courage to learn it. And then I added, and please make it soon because they're fine, but I'm going down. We just can't do this anymore. I can't carry it like this. So it gave me something to do. It wasn't like I was passive. But then I just started trying to, and this was the phrase Swami Kriyananda gave me, try to figure out what they are trying to accomplish and help them accomplish it, instead of what I think they should be trying to accomplish. I mean, I certainly resent it when people interfere with my life. Duh. It looks the same on the other. But you see how many steps you have to go through? This is what we're talking about. This is the courage of awakening. And it all begins with how you see your own life and how comfortable you are with the lessons that you're still having to learn. Because if you're frightened, then you're frightened about everybody. And if you have faith, the trouble with the law of karma, they do put it as the law, which is you attract to yourself whatever vibration is appropriate. You never attract to yourself more than you can handle, because Divine Mother knows that there's no point in just having you, it's just, you learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn. It's physics, it's metaphysics. It's like you won't attract it unless the vibration is there for you to learn it. Otherwise it waits in the bushes to jump out at you later. That's the good news. The other thing about karma, which is really worth knowing, is whatever you're struggling with now is because you refused to face it earlier. And if you refuse to face it now, you just get to face it later. I never try to persuade people to the law of karma. I explain it as clearly as I can and why it's beneficial. But it's tough. Because if karma is true anywhere, it's true everywhere. And that just completely doesn't take away our compassion, but it takes away our sense of outrage. And in the world that we're living in right now, the circumstances that are creating outrage are not so much the issue. It's the response of outrage that's causing so much trouble. Because it's creating a vibration of I'm right and you're wrong. You have no right to be. Let me crush you. And it also is creating a vibration of nobody's in charge except us. It's just barbarians on an island together, just tearing each other to shreds. I like to say shadow rather than dark, because light is the only reality. But if you block the light, you get a shadow. But as soon as you remove the block, the light is untouched. If you say dark, it sounds like there's actually an opposite. There isn't. There's just light and the refusal to accept the light. And then that's how it goes. So the light and the shadow. In the causal world, there's a war between the light and the shadow, and conscious beings become falsely persuaded that certain actions will bring happiness, and they become deeply committed to it. There's power in that. Power is one of the major delusions. They talk of sex, wine, and money, but money is about power. That's why people like money, because it gives them power. And power is very, very strong delusion. So people who get enamored of shadow power. And in a transition like this, there's huge conflicts going on. It's a war of ideas. And then there's energy being put into both sides of that. And then that's what's manifesting is all this tumult. But what is the opposite of shadow thought? It's light. It's not just another way of rearranging things. So it's, that's a world, if that's your world, if you have the karma to participate in that. But what you really have to contribute to every situation is light. So if we become outraged by what's going on, what are we adding to the universe? And that doesn't mean that we become passive or we let it happen. But if we are putting out the same vibration, a vibration of fear, a vibration of ignorance, a vibration of, well, if you just did it my way, everything would be better. And that, I'm going back to my parents, I realized I was well-intended, but my motivation was actually selfish, under the guise of looking, because I would feel better if the world would conform to me. So a great deal of what is perceived by the planet as altruistic, social act of trying to make things different, is really you're doing something that makes me unhappy. And even just your suffering is making me unhappy. I have to change it. And now, depending, you see, on where you are on the spectrum, to become generous enough to want your world to be better is a step up. But at a certain point, the world will not conform. And if your sense of security and your sense of happiness is that the world is going to be the way it is, and then you become angry. That's where you become more even outraged. How dare you do this to me? Because it's all about you. So the problem is that doesn't work. Because this is a mixed planet of certain vibration, and people have all kinds of karma that they have to work out. And we're trying to tell them what their karma should be, from what perspective. So then we have to realize that the only way I'm ever going to feel safe and secure is if I change myself. And this is where the truth seeker level comes in. Because the only thing I actually have influence on is my own inner reality. And that's the point at which, yes, we have to have the courage, to awaken to this. But at a certain point, it doesn't take courage, it's just common sense. Because nothing else works. And that's when it really begins to happen. That's when your own experience has told you that it's just pointless in going on trying to make the world okay. And yes, very bad things happen to me, but what difference does it make? Here we are now. And so what am I going to work with? I'm going to work with me. None of this makes you less sensitive. In fact, it makes you more sensitive because you're expanded and you're not afraid. You're not hiding from certain things all the time. And so even if you're just feeding soup to a hungry person, if your vibration in doing that helps them to understand, that Divine Mother is with you. God not only loves you, He likes you. It changes everything. You'll get hungry again, but you'll remember that. Understand? Same with ourselves.